I started writing this book, Spell Albuquerque, in February of 1997, noticing that most books written about the educational experiences of Black, Hispanic, biracial, and learning disabled students are written by middle-aged authors. My father, Ishmael Reed, author and lecturer at the University of California at Berkeley's English department for 35 years, asked me to write about the point of view of a Black learning disabled student who has firsthand experience of what it is like to receive an education in the United States. My learning disability was so severe that one teacher said that I would never learn to read or write. My first book was published when I was 11 years old. By the time I graduated from the University of California at Berkeley, I was the author of 3 books of poetry, winner of 2 poetry prizes, and had 1 poem part of the repertoire of a world-famous performer, Meredith Monk. Moreover, I was the youngest author to be presented abroad by the State Department when I read from my poetry at John F. Kennedy High School in Berlin. I also read at the University of Sapporo in Japan. My book, Spell Albuquerque, is the record of my journey from pre-kindergarten through graduate school, and also my run for school board in Oakland, California. It is my hope that this book will encourage Black, Hispanic, disabled, and gay students who learn differently and who are often humiliated by teachers and students who, out of ignorance, fail to understand their needs. The first chapter I'm going to read is chapter 1, What My Disabilities Are and How They Affect My Professional and Social Life. Society's disability, one way of thinking, being, and living, is the right way and the only way of thinking, being, and living. Tennessee Reed, May 21st, 2002. Between 18 months and 2 years of age, I was diagnosed as having a speech and language-based communication disorder. I was late in expressing myself through language and slow in processing language. Unlike a normal child's speech pattern, I would say a word and then not repeat it for 6 months. I was diagnosed as aphasic, which creates a speech pattern common to stroke and head trauma victims. I had my own language for a few years until I learned to speak English. Aphasia affected my reading comprehension. During a parent-teacher conference, this teacher told Mom that I would never be able to read or write. Mom told me recently that during the process of our learning to read, we had to cut words out and paste them onto a piece of paper. She assumed that because I had difficulty cutting, that I wouldn't learn to read. What she didn't understand was motor skills like cutting as opposed to large motor skills like walking. I learned to read, write, figure days of the week, and how to tell time in 6 months at home, thanks to Mom and Dad. I should have been learning this in school. When my teacher discovered my newly acquired reading and writing skills, she was shocked. I first learned to read when Dad's friend, the late Ted Jones, author of funky jazz poems, among others, bought me a book and record of the 3 Billy Goats Gruff at the Ashby Bart Flea Market in Berkeley. Ted Jones was considered the greatest jazz poet of the 20th century. Scholastic Records published the record in 1963. The storyteller was Bob Thomas, and Arthur Rubinstein composed the music. My reading comprehension is a lot better than it used to be, thanks to my compensating skills. I can read most things once and understand them. This problem improved somewhere in my early 20s. I still prefer audiobooks. I can hear them, so therefore I can comprehend them better. I wish they had this technology when I was a child, although I did use read-along records. Now I can put audiobooks on my iPhone. In addition, I have trouble following spoken or written directions, especially multiple step directions. This hasn't improved much. I have trouble with three-dimensional perception, which affects drawing and measuring geometric shapes. I also have trouble with logical reasoning and solving equations. My problem with math equations has not improved. Even when I had a tutor and I studied the math rigorously, my test results showed no improvement. I even find basic math difficult. Word problems, decimals, and percentages are hard for me. When I am shopping and there is a sale, it is hard for me to figure out what 10% or 20% off the regular price is. Sometimes I have to ask someone what the sales price is. Algebra, geometry, trigonometry, calculus, and statistics are disciplines where my disability hits the hardest. My math disability is called dyscalculia. It is like dyslexia. I also have trouble with tasks that require small muscle control or hand-eye coordination, which means I have difficulty with cutting and folding, but that is improving a bit. I don't hold my writing or eating utensils in the proper way. I even have a hard time buttoning my blouses with small buttons. This is why I buy dressy t-shirts or tunics instead of blouses. I was not diagnosed with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder until 1998, when I was tested at the University of California at Berkeley. When I was a small child, I was hyper. I took a lot of antibiotics and cough syrup for ear infections and colds. This caused hyperactivity because the ingredients included red and purple food dye. That's how I learned I had to cut food dye out of my diet. I also get rid of excess energy by swimming and doing low-impact aerobics. I still talk too much sometimes and giggle inappropriately. Just like with the language-based disorder, it can flare up when I'm nervous, tired, sick, on my menstrual period, and using the potent painkillers I now need to take every day. The ADHD has improved as well, but I still have a long way to go. I don't take antibiotics anymore when I have an ear infection. My parents have never pushed me to take medicine to reduce ADHD behaviors, and neither have my doctors or my teachers. When I was a member of AmeriCorps, some of my colleagues and bosses strongly suggested that I take anti-ADHD medications. When I was a young girl, I was told that I had autistic-like behaviors because I have an abnormal way of socializing. This was a theory. There was no diagnosis. I feel that my social anxiety is mostly related to the disabilities. Learning disabled people tend to have difficulty picking up cues and following social etiquette. For me, emotional baggage and chronic pain are part of the package as well. According to my preschool teacher, I didn't play with the other children that often. At that age, I had frequent ear infections. I was in constant pain. Now, at age 32, I have chronic back pain caused by osteoarthritis, spondylolisthesis, and herniated discs. As a result of stress fractures caused by sports injuries that required a lot of back bending, it is also genetic. And I have small fiber polyneuropathy, a very painful condition that is caused by a mild degeneration of the small nerve endings. This is why I'm taking pain medications. As a student, I had to pay attention to my academic life more than my social life, so I could be up to par with the rest of the class, and that took up most of my time. A lot of people don't understand why I have trouble socializing, even if they have known me all of my life. Because I have disabilities, people make a lot of negative assumptions about me, whether they are teachers, bosses, classmates, coworkers, family, and even friends. The most common assumptions are that I am lazy, that I am not that bright, that I am trying to get out of something, that I am not interested in a subject, or that I am selfish. I have gotten used to these assumptions. I used to think these assumptions were personal to me. At age 32, I know they are not personal to me. Even though I know the assumptions are not personal to me, that doesn't make them less frustrating. Now that I'm an adult, I have the choice not to be around these people. No one knows what caused my learning disability, and no one will ever know.